Hey, it's Aaron from GameEnthus.com, and today I'll be taking a look at a prototype of the Transcontinental, which was designed and illustrated by Glen Dresser from Wheelhouse Games. The Transcontinental is a 1-to-4 player worker placement, pick up and deliver, auction and bidding game that takes place in 1871 and a nascent Canada. Canada's about 4 years old then. The Prime Minister embarks upon a quite ambitious venture to connect the eastern provinces of Canada with the newly added western province of British Columbia, and building a train to connect people as well as goods, services, and what have you between the east and western sides of a young Canada. So players are going to be contractors who are working to build this railway. Keep in mind, this is a prototype, so a lot of the art and assets and components are not finished. There is a solo mode in the game, which involves you sort of going up against a crime syndicate, but this preview is going to focus more on the 2+ player versions of the game. Now on to that game I've been talking about. So all of this is essentially the setup for the Transcontinental. And what you're thinking is very busy, and I've thought the exact same thing. However, its busyness becomes understood. Once you kind of get the iconography down, it flows much easier. And what's nice is the game is for 1-to-4 players. Each player is going to get a guide. In fact, everybody's going to have one of these player screens. Helps because it explains the iconography, what you do on their turns, how you complete developments, and then the space down here is for the auctioning and bidding area and section. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Let me just point out some of the highlights. You have a terrain board up here in the upper portion, and you're going to put, I have a 2-player setup here, but you would put your 1-to-4 player scoring markers here. You see you have scores here from 1 to 50. I believe if you go over 50, you would take one of your resources and just put it there, indicating that wherever your scoring marker ends up, you would just be adding 50 to it. Not as if you'd forget, but just in case. And here you have the track board divided between the lowlands, the shield, the prairies, and then the Rockies. There are wilderness tiles that are covering up the track board, but the wilderness tiles have certain information on them that indicate the number of victory points you get for earning it. This one will allow you to get an ally card. See the same symbol as on these cards to get an ally card, and you need at least 3 resources to remove it. The train is going to be moving from east to west and from west back to the east. However, it's only going to go as far as the railhead goes. And during the bidding phase, you're going to be bidding certain values to remove these tiles. Whoever bids the most is going to get their first pick. So let's say people had a whole lot of resources and bid up to 9 resources total. So that would incorporate the 3, the 2, and the 4, in which case the person who bid the most would get their pick of which one of these tiles they would take. So let's say they really wanted points and ability to build a house, so they probably would take this one worth 4 points and this logo on it, meaning this will count for an endgame scoring mechanic where you are trying to build properties using the small house pieces on some of the boards, which unlock other abilities. And then beyond that, they involve the investment cards. I'll get into that in a second. Back over to the train board, you have the yard area and you have the line. The line is where, when you're getting resources, you're going to start to populate them on the actual line there. Now, as you see here, you have iron, you have wood, and the orange is navigational engineers. And you can see what's on the flip side. So on the back of the nav aids, train cars are tourists, passengers. On the back of the grain train cars, you have coal. And on the back of the wood, you have iron. Back of the iron, you have wood. Whoever has the most resources here, sort of fueling the train, providing the most coal, kind of gets to decide what other resources are going to be first to come into the line. So if you're not able to populate things here, you can begin to populate them in the yard area, but the yard isn't going along on the trip. The yard is staying in the yard. Whoever has the majority of the resources here to fuel the train gets to decide which one of these cars is going to be added on to the actual line for doing the pickup and deliver portion of the game. As I said earlier, the game is about worker placement, pickup and deliver mechanics, things of that nature. And these are called development tiles. So development tiles are above and below the actual track here. And if you place a worker here, whatever development tile is above or below it, it has access to. So you get to pick one action from this one and one action from this one, which is pretty neat. I could choose to develop, meaning I can begin to populate the areas here with hired nav aids. And the asterisks are wild, so I could populate anything, any resource. You can also trade. Once all these spots have been filled, if I have the majority of my color units on it, in a 2-player game, I will get points for it because I had the majority of my pieces on it, which means I would get 5 points, which also means I would just move up along the scoring track there. Once development tiles requirements have been fulfilled, if you see here in the corner here, it shows you what is actually on the other side. You just flip it over, and this one actually has even more things to do here. So you could fill this one up with 5 grain, and then you would get 8 victory points. Or you could hire 3 more nav aids or do more trades. Once the railhead and the last spike meet, that triggers pretty much the last round of the game, and whoever has the most points will win. But in order to remove these tiles, this is where the bidding comes into place. Players would take their screens and they would bid utilizing the numbers of employees they have and resources. So if we bid only 3, we're only contesting this tile here. If we bid up to 5, it would involve both of these tiles. Whoever bids the most this particular one is worth 2 victory points immediately and allows you to use another worker. Your workers are called telegrams. So as you're moving tiles, that means the train can move further up, which also means you're unlocking more places for you to put your workers as you move from east to west. One key thing is every player would begin with an investment card. So this is Thompson Outfitting. As I said earlier, this is a prototype, so the components and the art are all things that are subject to change. Did you see here the little feather icon? So if you were to build a house in your color on, let's say, the national park, the provincial park here, and the provincial park here, and you had 3 of these icons, you score 8 points. And everybody would also get 1 ally. The designer, Glen Dresser, did his homework, and this game is really based on historical events. And it's not shying away from things that are uncomfortable and things that happen that were not good, to be completely honest, in the construction of the railroad going from the provinces in the east to British Columbia. Allies are sort of one-time use cards that can, like this one, for example, build the McLeods. So this says portage 3 resources of one type to one destination within current region. Portaging allows you to unload resources you have on the train to any incomplete development, which is kind of useful. So this will be a one-time use. Let's just go through a couple of turns, show you how the flow of the game works. So we'll start off with the player here. This will be player 1, player 2. I said before, the train's going to be moving west and then back east. You have 3 telegrams, those are your workers, that you can place. However, you do have the option of keeping a telegram in a location and not placing the 3rd, if you wish. Since the train comes by, I could leave that worker there only to take this action on the way back, as opposed to doing it on the way there. So I am going to take this worker and put them here. Now these areas here allow you to acquire resources to actually put onto the train. So this one means I'm going to gain, pointing at 2 wood. You cannot occupy the same space as another worker. However, let's say hypothetically I had 2 of my wood resources there and player 2 had 1 of theirs, and let's say I went to here. Place your telegram here. You get an option of doing 1 action from this side and 1 action on this side on either one of these development cards, which is kind of cool. So you have option of lumber mill action and a coal mine action, so you can do both. So if I was going to unload wood, I could do that here, but that also means that the second player gets to decide what to do with their resource as well, which means maybe they put it there and then we complete this card. I would gain control of it because I had more resources on it, but one way to sort of stay afloat and stay in the game. Well, 2 player, I would get 450 points because I had the most resources on it, whereas this player would get 2 points because they had something on it, and only I would get a chance to build a building on it once we flipped it over. In a 3 or 4 player game, anybody who has any resource there, I believe, gets 2 points and can build a building if you're playing 3 or 4 players. So that's definitely a good way to sort of just stick your nose in things and just stay in the game, continue getting points. Even if you're not gaining control, you still stay in the game. You're still getting your buildings built. You're still earning points. Well, I'll resolve that later. So that's their action. And now the second player is going to here. And let's say they're going to go here. And let's say they go there. Now, at this point, I could place my third telegrams of the workers. I could place them, but maybe I don't yet. Maybe I leave them there. I don't know. I'm not gonna do that though. I'm just gonna place them. So they're gonna go here, which means they would be hiring 2 more nav aids. And let's see, this player here is going to go there. All right, so now the train begins and we resolve where the workers are going from east to west. You start off at 2 resources. Here you would automatically go down to 1. So if nobody goes there, I guess it loses value or productivity, or I don't know, it goes down to 1. If someone actually goes to that location and uses it, it goes up. So it was at 2, it would go up to 3. So this would jump back down to 1. This one is at 2, which means I'm hiring 2 nav aids. So I put my pieces there. So that's going to go back there, and this will now jump up to 3 for a subsequent round. For the yellow player here, they are going to put some iron onto the train. First player is going to acquire some more wood. Okay, so now this worker, I'm not going to use this one yet. I'm just going to keep this one here and keep going. So now I'm here. And I can choose to do an action for the capital city and an action for the lumber mill. Which am I going to do here? They don't have that many resources, to be honest with you. Okay, they do have iron, so they could put iron there, and then they would go back. Now we're here, so they're going to take 1 wood and put that there. Now, granted, that will give this player 4 points because this is completed, but they'll get something for it. It won't be a complete wash. Okay, so now the train is at the railhead, and it's at this point when the auction and bidding phase will begin, where you would hide resources behind your player's screen, and you'll be bidding resources you have between wood, iron, and the number of hired nav aids. Player 1 has 2 nav aids, so they could bid 2. Let's say player 2 has 2 wood. Let's say they build 1. Let's say they bid 1. That's a total of 3. You need at least 3 to get past this point here. So because player 1 bid more than player 2, they would get to keep this, and player 1 would get 5 victory points, and everybody would get an ally card. I'm not sure which one. I guess you would I don't know. I should take this one. I don't know. Everybody will get an ally card based on this because you see the 4 little symbols there. But only one player would get the 5 points, which would be player 1. Real. So now the train is moving back east, and they're going to stop here. I don't have any resources here, so really can't do a whole lot. I can't really do anything here. I don't have any resources with which to develop and place here. Nor do I have anything to trade. But okay, but this icon here lets me load any resource to the train. So I could just load an iron, I guess. And then this telegram will go away, and then the train will return back all the way to the east. Now, because no worker was placed here, the turn order was not affected. So if you place here, it just means you're going to be first player, but nobody went there. So that would be like the first turn. So let's say let's start the second one. Player 1 is still in first place. Need to resolve this. Player 2 has more resources on this development than player 1. So player 2 would get 4 victory points. And we'll flip this over. And because player 2 had more on it, they would get to build a development on it, which means the house icon means only if you have a development on this card can you take this action. So only player 2 can place a telegram here or here, thus having access to the lumber mill, and produce 2 wood. Now any player can sit here and can portage, but only player 2 can do that because they have a development on it. Now in a 3 or 4 player game, any player with any resource on there all can put development on there. But in a 2 player game, only the player with the most can put development on it, which opens up an action only for them, which is kind of cool. So that's sort of a quick snapshot overview of how Transcontinental works. Like I said, my first impression was, wow, there's a lot of iconography. It's very busy. There's a lot going on, and it is busy, and there is a lot going on in this game. But I do have to say, once you get in a couple of rounds, a couple of turns, it really starts to open up, and you start to see what the possibilities are. You start to get a feel for planning ahead. Like, I really want to get here to unlock this so I can do this and do that. And it really does start to come together, and it's not quite as daunting as it looks initially. And it is a Euro. It is. I'm not going to deny that there's an element of some heaviness to it, but on your turn, you're really min-maxing where your telegram should go to get you the resources you need to make sure you can fulfill your investments and get the points. If you have a chance to get 3 wood here, do so. You'll get 7 points for doing it. And then not only that, this is also a location where if you get the settlement on it, only those with settlements on the back of its development card can produce 3 coal just by being on the track there. Anyway, that is the Transcontinental. I'm not sure if I explained everything absolutely correctly. There's a lot to the game, but the flow of it is pretty cool. It's pretty neat, and I enjoy it. I do like the artwork. It is a prototype, but I like the colors. I think Glen did a really good job putting this game together. I believe it's already won several awards, and it's not even out yet. Looks a little heavy. It might feel like it at times, especially initially. Once it clicks, you'll be good to go. Transcontinental from Wheelhouse Games is now on Kickstarter. So that's it for me. Talked enough. Take care. Wear a mask. Be blessed.